To Venerable, thank you for giving us tools to work towards our own enlightenment. In my opinion, I need to understand something. The first one, you said there are 3 realms. The realm of desires, realm without desires, and realm with consciousness only, not enlightenment, but consciousness only. You also said that there are 3 modes of thinking. Real, distorted imagination. Can we prove all 3 realms exist? If not, could they be just our distorted or imaginary perceptions? We're talking about 2 things. You're talking about the world we stayed in. According to the sutra, according to the Buddha's wisdom, there are 3 kinds of existence. The 3 worlds, it's 3 worlds of existence. And the value, the characteristics of each world is determined by the karma of those living beings living in that existence. And then our first question is, how about the world we live in? There's 3 worlds. The world of desires, the world without desires, but still have materiality, and the world beyond material, only consciousness left. When we say the top level is the world with only consciousness left, we don't mean that they are already enlightened. It's just they don't have a body anymore. Because the body, the way we look at it is different. The way they look at it is different. The body is a burden. Everybody thinks this body is lovely. I have a body. But they're more or less enlightened beings in the next level said that you have the burden. Because you have that apartment that you have to whitewash, you have to furnish, you have to keep, you have a lease there, you have to pay your due, pay your rent. You're living in a body apartment. And then it dies. It decays. So he said, no, your body is no good. We don't have a body. They think that we don't have a body at a very high level. What you're saying is, how can you prove those 3 realms exist? Now, first of all, let's look at our realm. You already exist in it. We don't have to prove it in our realm. You already exist in this world with desires. And do we have to prove it? No. We have desires. We have sexual desires, desires for reputation, for wealth, desires for comfort, for luxuries. We have all kinds of desires, unending, insatiable desires in this world. And in the process of trying to fulfill our insatiable desires, we're driven by how we think, and how we think form opinions and judgment and all that on the situation and objects and people. And in the process of doing it, we are creating emotions and reactions, and all those create suffering and karmic energy that we all know. This is already a world that you don't have to prove. This is the realm of desires. In the realm of desires, we're also living in the universal truth, whether it does not matter whether you believe it or not, but it's almost like a universal truth, that we are living in the world of causality. So in other words, everything we do, all the causes that we sow, all the causes that we have done would lead to certain effects. You don't need to prove it. We see it in daily life that if you kill someone, you'll be caught, then you'll be you will be judged by the court. So in other words, there's always causality in everything we do. You sow the apple seed, you got the apple tree, apples, orange trees and oranges that you eat. So we're living also in causality. And all this causality would make things happen. So we don't have to prove this world. This world is already in front of our eyes. We're living into it. And then the Buddha told us that you don't only have this world. There are other worlds too. There are worlds like they don't have any desires. They don't have desires like you. The sexual desire, the desire for wealth and reputation and all that. We are living in a world with gender because we have the sexual desires to fulfill. And we think that this is good. Usually we humans think that this is a good thing. But the saints, that's exactly what accounts for our life reincarnating. But we're attached to that, all these desires and senses. Now in the higher level, they don't have that. They don't have the gender, and their value of life is different from us. They have a long longevity. In other words, the span of life is thousands of years, and they live. They don't eat like us. They don't have breakfast and lunch and dinner, and then after we eat something, we have to excrete it into the toilet through certain ways. They don't need that. They don't need that kind of living. They live in a style that they don't need eating, so they don't have the sense of smell, the sense of taste. You think the sense of smell and taste is good, but they don't need it. And they develop in somewhere else. They develop in their eyes, their ears, and their touch. So then how do you prove it? There's no actual proof to this. But then that leads to the question is, if you can't prove it, why do you believe in it? If you cannot prove it out to me, if you cannot put it on the desk, I can touch it, I can see it, I can actually get in touch with it, I don't believe in it. If that's the way you believe in something, then there are many, many things that you won't believe in. Because believe something, there are many ways in believing it. Usually there are 4 ways in believing something. Believing something means that you already agree with the proof. You believe in it, right? But the Buddha told us that when you believe something is true or not, is real or not, there are 4 ways you do that. The first way is, it really exists in front of your eyes. This is my cup. I don't believe it's a cup. Of course, it's real. I believe in it because it's real. Something that I can touch, I can see, it's real. That's everybody agreed. Another way of believing in it and getting proof of it is, I haven't seen it with my senses, but I can postulate from it. I can infer from it. In other words, believe and prove by inference, by postulation, by your own analysis. For example, I see a mountain over there, and I see smoke coming out there. I don't need to see the fire. There's no smoke without fire. I postulate, I infer from the appearance of the fire that something may be burning in the forest. But you haven't seen the fire. How can you believe that there's a fire? You haven't seen with your eyes, you haven't smelled it. Then you see it by inferring, by postulation. You don't see with senses, actual senses. You don't hear it, you don't taste the fire, you don't perceive it, but you still believe there's no smoke without fire. I know there's a fire there. And also, you know by postulation, by inference, that all of us is born by hereditary traits. What I mean is, you have a father, and your father have a father, and your grandfather have a father, and your father told you, hey, John, you have a great-grandfather. John said, no, I want to prove. I haven't seen my great-grandfather. I want to hear my great-grandfather in order to believe I have a great-grandfather. I haven't seen him. How can I believe I have a great-grandfather when I haven't seen him? They said, you're foolish. If I'm not the son of my grandfather, how can I give birth to you? And John was so obstinate. No, the teacher told me that I want to believe in only things that my senses can see, can touch, can hear. And then his father said, John, you're foolish. You believe it by postulation, by thinking, by inference. Have you seen the Prime Minister in the 1960s, Trudeau? No, I haven't seen him. But you still can see the pictures, you can. But how about all those previous prime ministers? You haven't seen him. You haven't seen the origins, the ancestors. Do you believe that you have ancestors? You can infer by hereditary that you have a great-grandfather, but you haven't seen him. So another way of believing in something, proving that it's right, is by thinking about it. That's the second way. But then there's a third way. Sometimes your postulation is right, and sometimes it's wrong. Not always right. Because, say, if I can, if in a mountain, I saw a figure with two horns. And then I say, I know there's a cow in there. Because you see the shadow of two horns. And then that's by postulation. But actually, that's not a cow. There's just two branches sticking out, the sun shining on it. There's two shadows appear as if it's a buffalo's horns. So sometimes your postulation may be right or may be wrong. But you still believe. That's the way you believe in something. You may be wrong sometimes, not all the time wrong, but not all the time right. The fourth way you believe in something is you believe in something that is a trustworthy source, or believe in something that a saint told you. What is a trustworthy source? My dad told me that he's going to leave some money with me, and in the future I can use it. I'm going to believe in it because my dad loved me, and I think that's trustworthy. Sometimes what my dad told me is a trustworthy source. That my dad won't cheat me all the time. So you believe in something that is a trustworthy source from saints, from the Buddha, Confucius, from some saintly people. You believe in the books they have written, trustworthy historical books that you believe in. Do you believe in Rome was like that? It was written in history. And how can you say, I haven't seen Rome 1,000 years ago. I don't believe there's a Rome. Because you believe in a history, and history, everybody wrote history in a different way. But sometimes from joining together, you can prove that that's the way Rome looked like 1,000 years ago. That's the way Rome was built. That's history. So those are the methods you use to believe in something. So you wanted to ask me, how do you believe in the world without man and woman, they still have a body? That's what the Buddha told us. There's another world, not of this world. There's another higher level where not even material left. There's no combination of body cells, protons, electrons, neutrons in the top world. They only have consciousness. But that consciousness is tainted. They don't have the body burden anymore. They don't have the sexual burden anymore. They're in a much higher level. But they're still not enlightened yet. So basically the Buddha broke down these three categories and tell us. Because we're not enlightened. We haven't got the wisdom to explore into that area. That's what the saint told us. So we say, oh, it may be true. If we have this world that is like this, there may be another world with another beings. It's just like when you were living in China 1,000 years ago, they didn't believe in there's another world called America 1,000 years ago because they haven't seen it. But it does not mean that America did not exist. Sometimes our limited wisdom is not wide enough to know everything. Then you have to use your intelligence to absorb. You don't try to introduce all this negative aspect in you. I want to get proof so that I can believe that. I want to get proof. Then our senses actually are responsible for the distortion. Our intelligence sometimes is the culprit for our arrogance and ignorance. You know why? Because our senses are not even better than some animals. A dog can hear a sound 5 miles away, the siren of an ambulance. Human eyes cannot. So when the dog is barking, barking, the intelligent guy would say, "Hey, John, there's an ambulance will be coming by." And this guy said, I didn't hear anything. But that guy who knows that the dog barks would know that an ambulance will go by. He already know 1 minute before that guy who did not know about the dog's hearing, listening ability. So our senses are not even better than a dog. A dog can hear 5 miles away. We can only hear, I don't know, maybe 1 mile. An eagle can see a grain of rice a few miles away. That's the reason why they can jump down and they're predator on small birds. And a whale could listen to his companion 20 miles away in the water. Seals. So our senses, our intelligence are limited. If we only use our limited intelligence to judge the whole world, you are limiting yourself. That's the reason why you have to believe in some trustworthy source. Somebody told you, you can have query in your understanding, but you don't stop it by, I want to get proof of this, I want to get proof of that. Then you don't believe in anything. So believe in something, you use inference, postulations, and sometimes you use your senses. You believe in your senses. I see this, I believe in it. I hear something. Even the listening perception sometimes distorts you. That creates a lot of problem. You think someone is blaming you, but they may be blaming somebody else. So you could be fooled by your own intelligence, by your intelligence of wanting getting proof of all that. Okay, so that's how we believe in something. We don't necessarily have to get proof. Even science, they could not get a lot of proofs from a lot of things. The theory of relativity expounded by Einstein was refuted by some of the scientists 20 years later. And up to date modern science keep on continuing refuting ancient philosophy. So even science is not trustworthy in that way. Your intelligence have to improve. So don't say that it's only proved. If you want a proof of everything, you can live. Then you just blind up your own intelligence. So that's your answer. And as to how do you prove that certain states of the world we perceive in is reality, and some of it is distorted reality, and some of this is imaginary reality. You don't need to get proof. We're living in that world you already know. You are living in a world with cold reality. This is a cup. Are you going to say this is not a cup? I can see it. I can touch it. So this is a cold, true, as it is, reality. That's the first reality that we don't need proof. Everybody see that. You don't need proof. The second state is a distortion. Sometimes we see a reality and our opinion distorted. We think that we see a guy that looks like a criminal, but he isn't. He's a kind man. And because of our opinion, passing on the appearance of a criminal, we convey that opinion and stereotype that guy as a criminal. There's a distorted reality. He's a man, he's a kind man, but you distort him to be a criminal. What you still need to prove what? Is your own distortion. Another is your imagination. You have your imagination. Sometimes you imagine things that they may not be right. Sometimes you imagine things that may be right. And what else do you want to prove that? You're already living in that world that you already know that's the way it exists. There's distorted reality, there's imagination, there's true reality. That part, I don't need to prove it to you. You're living in it. The other part, you think about it. You believe in things not just of the present moment. You believe in things that's from a trustworthy source, from postulation and inference, and so on and so forth. Okay? That's enough for these questions. How can we understand true reality when all experience is perceived through subjective senses? When we say true reality, there's no such thing as true. Don't interpret that word true as an enlightened truth. True means it exists. Existence. How can we say this existing reality is not reality? We can say this in the eyes of the enlightened person, this may not be a true reality. Because what? It is a representation of our consciousness. It is a combination of molecules put together. It is a combination of a lot of color, burning, a lot of causes put into that to make that happen as a cup. The cup exists on conditions. Without conditions, this cup would not exist. So this is an existence of all conglomerated conditions put together. For that reason, it exists as a cup with the name of a cup, but that name does not mean anything. It's just a name that we humans attach to it so that we can conceptualize the cup. If there's another world, they don't call it a cup. So all this is changing. This is not permanent. This is all causes put together. It does not have its real intrinsic nature. Anything that has a real intrinsic nature is permanent, does not need causes for it to come true. There's no such thing. Everything is impermanent, everything is changing, everything is all causality put together. For that reason, we don't call it a true reality. It's an existing reality, not a true reality. When a Buddha looks at a cup, he won't attach to this cup. He looks at this cup, the causes of a cup. You understand? But that's not what we look at. When a wino looks at a bottle of whiskey, it's different from another person looking at a bottle of whiskey. When an agriculturalist looks at a tree, a pine tree, it's different from what I look at a pine tree. They all have different opinions, different perceptions. They distort it accordingly. But that pine tree is still a cold pine tree. That pine tree comes together as a pine tree is because of the seeds, growing, water, light, fertilizers. It does not have its own intrinsic self-depending nature. It exists on causality. That's the reason why the Buddha said, don't attach to it. It's only a causation. You understand what I mean? Any counter arguments? No? No? Thank you. A friend of mine is a hunter for sport. He hunts bears. Now my friend has cancer. How can he improve his karma and prevent future suffering in his life and the next incarnation? He has to be responsible for what he has done. As I said, you are the creator of your own intelligence. You created your own inferno. You created your own heaven. Nobody else. In order to change it, you have to change your cause. You already have done, you already have killed, you already have committed the killing. Then you will have to suffer from the cause of committing the killing. You cannot change that, can you? But you can change for the future. You can change it now. You stop your killing now. You start to repent on what you have done. I know I was wrong. I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to kill. You have to acknowledge that you have done a bad deed. I know I was wrong. I'm not going to change it again, to do it again. But I'm willing to accept whatever karma comes to me. That is a total acceptance of your responsibility. You can't change that. You can only accept on what you have done. But you can change now on what you're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, the future is in your hands. If suffering from a cancer is a result of what you kill in the bears, then why do you attach death so seriously to that? Maybe if you change it now, then you can recover. If you are not, then say, in my next life, I'm going to go for the wisdom. I'm not going to go into the same trap again. I'm going to change it now. That's the reason why I always told people, change it now. Don't wait till you have cancer. Then you changed it. You do it now. People they are only afraid of the result. They're not afraid of the effect. They're not afraid of the causes. They keep on sowing bad causes, bad seeds. And they're not afraid of the bad results. They only cry, they only emotionally react to the bad results. Do it now. Don't kill now. Don't lie. Don't commit all these bad deeds. You have to change today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Change every thought, every action. It's not too late. Change it now. Don't wait till the last moment. Don't wait till on a dying bed and say, I have done all these things. Nobody told me. Do it now. It's never too late to mend. There's a word saying. The past you can't change. How can you change the past? Say your dad abused you. Can you change that? You can only change your feeling on the abuse. I want to forgive my dad. Given the karma that I and my dad created in previous life, he came back to get me. He came back to make me suffer because I abused him before. I want to forgive. Only forgiveness can wash away the karma, not hatred. I hated my dad. I hated my dad's guts. No, that's not the way. You only increase your anger, your hatred. You have to dissolve it, subsume that with compassion. That's how you changed. You can change the abuse, but you can change your interaction to the past. Forgive it. Compassion. The 9 lotus should reach the other shore. Is the other shore equal to nirvana? When you're talking about the 9 lotus in the Amitabha Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, there are 9 levels. The low 3, the middle 3, and the top 3. According to the Pure Land approach, if we practice meditation and wishing that we can purify all our karma and reach to nirvana, that is almost like impossible. Because we are getting more and more busy every day. In the ancient days, we spent a lot of hours in meditation. We meditate for 10 hours per day in those ancient times when life is not as complicated. Now life is getting more and more complicated. You don't even have 1 hour of meditation. How can you meditate for 15 minutes every day and become a Buddha? So the Buddha already knew, and he told that in many sutras. He said, in the Dharma ending age, you really have to practice the Pure Land approach. What is the Pure Land approach? You chant the name of a Buddha, and that Buddha who make that wish will receive your soul into that land. This Pure Land approach is quite similar to what other religions call heaven. You chant the name of God and you go to heaven. But then heaven is not the ultimate way that you should go. Amitabha Buddha created a world there that when you die, Amitabha, that Buddha, would receive your soul into that land. In other words, you are doing your immigration application. You're applying for immigration after death, that you won't immigrate into life and death anymore. You won't immigrate into animal realm, hell realm, or all other 6 realms. You would go to that land where there's no reincarnation, where there's only happiness, where you learn under the Buddha. But there are certain conditions that you have to fulfill in order to be born in that land. That you really have to study the sutras to find out. But that's the concept. When you died, your alaya consciousness will leave your body. The 8th consciousness. We'll talk about that in the future. When you die, your 8th consciousness, the 8th one, because your eyes, your ears, your nose, all this will shrink into that consciousness, the eighth consciousness, the alive consciousness, and that consciousness will be received by Buddha into that land where there's no more reincarnation. And in that land, there are certain levels of enlightenment. If you really practice so fervently that you are in a very high level, then you're in the top level. So you have lower, middle, lower in the lower level, low, middle, higher in another level. So you have 9 lotus, 9 levels. And getting to those lotus, to that pure land, is not nirvana. That's just a school where you learn to be the Buddha. In there, the real Buddha, Amitabha Buddha, will be your guru, will be teaching you. In here, like we are the guru, we are just monks, ordinary monks, telling you that's what the Buddha said. But in there, there's a Buddha who already enlightened. He would be teaching you how to meditate. In here, I will be teaching you how to meditate. And based on my wisdom, based on my background and what I've learned, I told you what the Buddha told me in sutras, and that's limited. That's not enough. So that's the reason why it's very difficult for you to get enlightened in this life. So you have to go to that land where the Buddha was there waiting for you to teach you to that level. And once you're in there, you won't reincarnate. That's the conditions. A lot of people, I won't say a lot, according to the sutra, some people already migrated to that world. And some, they still roll in reincarnation. And according to the sutra, there are certain conditions that you have to build up. For example, you really have to chant the name of Amitabha all the time. In your consciousness level, you always train yourself to be chanting the name of the Buddha so that at the verge of death, you won't get confused. You won't have so much suffering that you cannot chant. You still have that one purity of mind that you chant Amitabha. You have that purity of mind, and that mind will be responsible for your position, for your ability to be born in there. So you still have to study that sutra to find those sutras to find out. So that's not nirvana. You get into that university first, learn from the Buddha, but you won't retrogress again to reincarnation. You learn from there. It's just like a university that you go to, a non-retrogressive university. You won't retrogress back to devil, back to inferno again. You will be studying there until you get all the credits to be the Buddha. And even that land is temporary. Even that land is not real. It's just an intermediate country, intermediate realm for the expediency of all those who could not be enlightened in this life to go over there. There's a transitory state.